about Ahmed Buhari, a former vice presidential candidate of the ADC in the 2023 election. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning. Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day to you too. I'm sure you listened to the speech. Quickly talk to us. What was the high point for you of that speech?
25,000 naira increment for civil servants, obviously. Everybody is going to be excited about that. I also heard things around reassurances that the subsidy removal in the long term would benefit us in general as a country with regards to development and stability of certain policies that the government has put in place. I also heard in that speech a clear hand of collaboration between the executive and the National Assembly and the judiciary, reminding them that they need to work as a team. Also, I think the president highlighted very carefully that indeed he may not agree with all they say sometimes, but obviously he listens to the advices and he will do his best to make things work. However, listening to that speech, I did have my concerns because my people say that when you start... Sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay, because I think my people say some things about when you start making a move and you see certain things that do not seem to be working correctly, sometimes you should take a chill, take another direction, or realign with what your realities might be looking like. So, for example, I've always said that any increment in salaries at a time like this, especially for a 1% of the population, talking about the civil service structure, is going to be rather inconvenient for a lot of people who will not receive that increment. In other words, there's going to be a tremendous increase in the price of commodities in the markets from tomorrow. In fact, from this evening, a lot of market women are going to increase their commodities. Food is going to go higher. And when we make this increment, the reminder I keep making to government is this does not necessarily translate to a reduction in the cost of transportation of products and services from the farm to the market. This does not reduce the cost of electricity. This does not reduce the cost of most of these other things that you've already put in place. So what I expect in most cases is if you want to work on the civil service structure, which I believe is an important part of our system, I call them the gatekeepers. Why do I call them the gatekeepers? Every single thing, every single policy that the executive with the legislative and the judiciary would want to see happen in their time in office would have to go through the gatekeepers. These are the civil servants. Either you want to call them civil servants, public servants, police, military, paramilitary, all of them, all encompassing, are the people that are expecting this increment. But let me tell you something. They are the gatekeepers because all these policies would have to go through them for implementation. And the moment the civil servants are not excited or happy, they distract or divert the ability of your performance to see the light of day. In other words, as it stands right now, if we want to make these things work, we must go back to moving from a salary increment system to a welfare increment system. What is a welfare increment system? It means that we should pay more attention to their housing, we should pay more attention to their school fees, maybe subsidized school fees for their children in government-run schools. We should pay more attention to health care for civil servants. We should pay more attention to tax rebates, for example, for civil servants. And then when you talk about these things, you now have a civil service structure that is willing to see that your policies see the light of day. Otherwise, we might be going around in circles and expecting something else different to happen. Now,
I hear you, Mr. Buhari. Let us talk about the increment for a bit because we have to be a little bit more specific. The 25,000 naira addition promised by Mr. President is for those he called low-grade workers. And, you know, we're yet to get details as to which number of Nigerian workers actually fit into that category. But would you say that his speech today spoke to the demands of organized labor vis-a-vis the impending nationwide strike for 3rd of October? Twice, he mentioned worker issues when he spoke about this increment, and then also thanking the civil society and saying that he respects organized labor, even though sometimes they do not see eye to eye. Do you think he could have been more specific in appealing to organized labor? He did not at any time mention or made reference to the nationwide strike?
Yes, he didn't make mention to the nationwide strike. That is because probably it's nothing that's been really thought through with regards to organized labor and to see how we can curb some of the plans that they have with regards to the strike. But I think most importantly for Nigerians, organized labor and the federal government, it's a question of truly, bringing everybody coming down to the level of understanding where it really, hurts us the most. I'm telling you, and I'm going to be very honest, it is not sustainable. In fact, if you want us to go back to the conversation of fuel subsidy, which you also talked about with regards to fuel subsidy as a means to, in the long term, is going to benefit us. I'm going to still say it here again, like I've always said it everywhere. We do not have to remove subsidy. Why are we taking off subsidy? What are we subsidizing for the Nigerian people? What is it that the government of Nigeria is doing to reduce the hardship on the Nigerian people? This is a commodity, or this is a product that we have. It's a God-given product. What stops us from saying, you know what, the primary objective of a government, of our government, is to see that whatever it is, let us bring down the cost of either food or petroleum products, just so that our people can have ease to do anything they want to do. I'll tell you something very frankly. A lot of people are not even able to go out anymore to do their business. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't afford it. A lot of people don't even think.
Mr. Buhari, I thought that we were unanimous about removing fuel subsidy. Prior to the 2023 general election, every single major contender decided to go that route, and it's also been in public discussion for years. And the majority of the people wanted not me, Nifemi. And the truth of the matter still remains that even if indeed it looked like a fantastic idea, it's not working. And that is one reminder I want to give to all of us. Whether it's going to be with regards our internal affairs or external affairs, let it be that the plight of the Nigerian people should always come first. I'll give you another example. Another big example has to do with our international crisis right now with Niger Republic. As I speak with you right now, it's getting worse. And my hope is that the government of Nigeria, or the federal government of Nigeria, would actually find a way to quickly sit down with the authorities holding sway in Niger Republic, only so that we can have a relationship that benefits Nigeria and Niger, and by extension the ECOWAS system, before we start thinking about what happens in the international community with regards to the West and what they want us to do with regards to seeing that democracy holds sway in Africa. We want it to hold sway, but again, we have to have systematic approaches in the way we manage some of these problems. And as I speak with you right now, we are slowly losing grip. Look, Nigeria cannot really stand as it is without some of its neighbors. These neighbors over time have become part and parcel of us, and we must do all we can to ensure that things are working right with us. With regards to the subsidy, I don't think it was a unanimous. Probably some people or some contenders who wanted to say the things that people wanted to hear that was different, say the things they wanted to say. But in my opinion, I still strongly believe that fuel subsidy can remain. Because as it is right now, if you hear the president speak, he speaks about trying to save a lot of money, and at the same time, he talked about trying to reduce the cost of transportation, for example. How would you reduce the cost of transportation if you're not going to be, as a government, removing that money that you think you're saving from fuel subsidy into the same system that you were saying you were trying to save from? So it's a vicious circle, but whether you look, anyhow you want to look at it, go around the world, you will find a lot of countries who pick an item or group of items to subsidize for its people, even if it is bread. And that is why I keep coming back to the conversation around the fact that as a government, the most important thing is to understand that you may have certain policies, direction, and aspirations, but again, the realities will always come knocking on you, and the earlier you decide to listen to the people or the plight of the people to give them some succor, the better for all of us.
Are you saying that what the government or what the president has said in his address is not necessarily addressing the plights of the people, and that he's seemingly not listening to what Nigerians are saying?
Obviously, as a government, as a man, you would have your viewpoints and because he said something very clearly. He said, I listen to, we may not agree on everything, but I hear you. All right? So there are two things there. It's either I hear you and it's not probably going to knock down on me until the next 1.5 years, 2 years, or maybe I hear you and I'm going to take action immediately. It depends on the president and the government, you know, at the helm of affairs. But I think most importantly right now for all of us is to understand that, look, how are Nigerians faring? What is going on right now? How are we coping? I know a couple of months ago, a few weeks ago, there was a conversation around maybe they were going to pull back on the subsidy and see how, because now they have better data as to how much liters of petrol we use per day, as opposed to the sketchy figures that we used to have. But in truth of the truth of the matter is that not everybody goes out from Monday to Friday anymore. Some people don't even go out anymore. Some people work half the journey and then use transportation for the rest of the journey. Some people,
it's hard to tell if people are not really going out anymore, but maybe we will have to look for a more scientifically proven data, because here in Lagos, the traffic is still as much. But I want us to speak to how important is intervention really are, because beyond the 25,000 he spoke about, he also mentioned other things is done, the CNG buses that are on the way, a new leadership at the Apex Bank, new tax policies, and investment funding to enterprises with great potentials. Mr. President did say this morning that reform is painful, but that it is what the future requires. The question really is, from all of the things he's highlighted in the speech today, how optimistic are you that they are enough to help through this painful season?
So I'm a very optimistic Nigerian. I'm very hopeful. One of the reasons why I'm not going to Japa is because I believe in this country, and I believe that regardless of how tough it is, brighter days are ahead. My plea to everybody is to always speak positive and look, you know, positively towards the future. And I think one of the biggest problems we've had as a people also is our inability to support ourselves, support our space, see the positivity, and hopefully see how we can head to a direction that is going to give us positivity and prosperity, as the case may be. So my view, my focus is always going to be on the fact that yes, it's going to work. Yes, we're going to get it right. Yes, at different times we should, you know, we should take a stop, look at it properly, and analyze if it indeed it's heading towards the direction that we want it to head towards. Because again, like I said to you, with regards to the gatekeepers that I spoke earlier, if the gatekeepers are not going to be with us on this journey, then I honestly do not see how the policies and the plans of the federal government of the country right now is going to see implementation. You know, again, these civil servants are so important to me. I know a couple of days ago there was a situation between the Minister of Works and the civil servants in that ministry, and I think the whole conversation was around the minister locking the gates because he came to work around 9:30 in the morning and realized that a lot of the people, civil servants working in his ministry, had not come to work. And when he locked the gate, I think it turned into a fracas, because at that point in time, the civil servants were asking for him to leave. They locked the gates, and they asked him to come downstairs to apologize to them, or they will make things go all over the place. I think this is a very bad position we have brought ourselves to as a people. I know that indeed there are certain civil service rules and regulations that maybe the minister must have flouted, but the bone of contention still remains the fact that you people came late to work. As civil servants, your resumption time is 8 o'clock in the morning. Your closure time is about 4 p.m. in the evening. And that is the time you are supposed to be at work. So when you look at it critically, the man hours that are supposed to be put in place to give us productivity are being lost from a system that does not really take anything seriously.
The minister even did say that they adjusted the time to 9 a.m. because of the reality in Abuja, and at 9:30, quite a number of them were not at work. According to him, as early as 3 p.m. when he's asking for some files, they have also left work again. So it speaks broadly to the question of, are we building strong men or strong institutions? Because it's not just about what Dave Umahi could do. It's about do we have a system in place that will ensure that, you know, workers do what is expected of them.
But you can see that at the end of the day, David Umahi had to apologize to the civil servants because the civil servants, in their own thought process, because of many years of laxity and lack of system holding them accountable, they felt their rights were being trampled upon. While in reality, they were supposed to be apologizing not just to the minister, but to Nigerians, because we have put them in that place as gatekeepers to ensure that the system is working. Now, these are the realities that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has got to contend with, which is why my conversation is still around the fact that rather than increase 25,000 naira for low income or wherever level you want to bring it down from or take it up from, most importantly is to see that certain things are being taken care of, so that when you take care of their basics, when you take care of their housing, when you take care of their subsidized schooling for their children, when you take care of healthcare and tax rebates and stuff like that, and at that point, if you find any civil servant who is trying to dip his hand into the coffers of the treasury, then you can hold them accountable. In fact, their colleagues will blow the whistle, I assure you, because as I speak with you, the number of people within the gatekeepers that have access to the collective resources of the people of Nigeria are a few. The other ones just watch, hoping that their time will come when they can also dip their hands into the system. So these are the realities that we have to contend with. These are the truths on the ground, and I do not know exactly how...
Mr. Buhari, can you hear me? Right. Now, you spoke to something earlier that I would want for you to expatiate now. The president has spoken to some of the issues that will commence, some of the things that he has put in place that would commence this month, talking about implementation. And we had a conversation earlier, and we are saying that we are hoping to see his ministers hit the ground running with some of the things that he has mentioned, because time is of essence for Nigerians as it is. I'm wondering how you would want to see the ministers addressing some of the issues he has mentioned with regards to implementation. Yes, you may not agree with some of the things the president has put in place, but yes, we want to see something being done, implementations, such that Nigerians can move along with what the government is trying to do, and nobody is left behind in terms of implementation of all of these things that he has reeled out. What do you expect to see from the ministers?
Okay, thank you. So I got into this space about 8 years ago, actively trying to have conversations around nation building and success of governance and all of that. And you see, it's going to be difficult for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu or any other president for that matter. I've heard people say, oh, I wish it was the other one that won the election or the other one that won the election. Things would have been different. But if this important aspect is not given a lot of importance, I am afraid that we may not be able to achieve much. And it has to do with data. Proper data management systems have got to be put in place. You cannot work this country's space or see your policies implemented or see your dreams actualized as a system, as a government, without putting data into place, without understanding the number of people you are dealing with, without understanding how you want to deal with us, without understanding what truly, how you want to measure your achievements or your successes in real time using the data that you have collated. And anytime I talk about data, people just keep making it look like, oh, it's not so important. The most important thing is to start running. We cannot run if we do not know where we're running to. And that applies to all the ministers in all the ministries. I've heard humanitarian affairs speak a lot about the plans that they have and what they want to achieve. But I'm still going to say this very clearly. You do not know who you want to work with. You do not know who you want to help. You do not know who you want to support. And if you still do not know these things, it's going to be very difficult. And somebody will tell me things like, oh, it's so hard for you to get the data of these people because some of them are not even educated. Some of them live in the rural areas. Yes, we have
that data readily available.
I've been on the campaign. Let me just finish this point. I've been on campaign grounds. I've been to the remotest of villages and towns. I've crossed rivers, I've crossed streams just to get to the people. And every time I do that, I actually see banners and posters of different political parties in those areas, which means that those people are actually registered people. I think at a time like this, there should be some sort of partnership between government and most of all of these small systems that we have created around, which I call the small banking systems that have collected data already of these people living in the remotest of the places and say, you know what, let us work together with the data that you have put together and let us see how we can understand the income levels of the different people in the different areas so that we know how to address these issues.
So I asked earlier if we have that data readily available as it is, because we know how we are with matters of data management as a country.
A very good question. And the truth is, there is data, but it's all scattered all over the place. And that is why I'm saying I heard the president speak about small and medium scale enterprises. And these small and medium scale enterprises, if you look at it critically, they are not tied to the mainstream commercial banks that you have. They're actually tied to the small banks all over the place that I call, what do you call them? They're all over the place now. We have banks like Money Point, we have Momo, we have people in my village who are registered to those people over the bigger banks. In fact, when you leave the major cities, when you leave the capitals of the states and you go into the hinterland, you don't find any bank anymore. You actually find POS guys actually making transactions happen. They have actually gone through the process of trying to bridge the knowledge gap between technology and the people living in those villages, which means we have data. All we need to do is stretch a hand of partnership with these people and see how we can put this data together and understand how many Nigerians are excluded from the real banking system and see how we can bring them into the system and work with them and understand their earning power, understand how we want to support them, understand how we want to structure their finances, understand how we want to help them in investment, understand how we want to support them, even if it's with palliatives and the rest. How can we still be giving palliative in bags in 2023? How can we still be talking about giving palliatives in envelopes? I've seen governors who say they're very sincere, but they give their aides to go and share 10,000 naira in envelopes to people. Who told you that 10,000 naira in the envelope gets down to the other side as 10,000 naira? You never know. You never know if it's been shot to 2,000 naira. You never know if it's been shot to 5,000 naira. The reality still remains that in 2023, in a time of technology like this, everybody should be using some sort of platform that helps us to address these issues in a way that transparency and accountability and efficiency is our topmost priority.
Absolutely. So the president this morning reminded us that there are also state governments, state governors. The government isn't just at the center. When he made reference to the efforts of the federal government to help grassroots development by coming up with infrastructure support fund for states to invest in critical areas. He also mentioned that these governors have received in part the funds that is meant for some relief package in the face of the increase in prices and what have you. Would you say that governors are coming to the party in the face of this challenge? How well are they faring, in providing that succor and welfare as perhaps one of the closest government to the people?
Mr. Nifemi, it's still the same thing we're talking about. We're still going to keep going around the circles, whether it's going to be the ministers or the governors. For the president to release funds to governors who haven't presented before him how they want to reduce poverty in their localities, it doesn't speak well. It doesn't speak well. I know that the whole idea is to see that things work and work really fast. I know that the whole idea is to see that Nigerians begin to appreciate the government, but without proper planning, without a proper foundation, we're still going to fall on the side. I still strongly believe that partnership between the government and microfinance banks all around the country, a strong collaboration has got to be put in place. And while all of this is being done, we must not forget the fact that cybersecurity is a very important aspect of all of this conversation. And so a lot of collaboration has got to be put in place between the government agencies that are responsible for financial inclusion and all of that, and the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so that we don't get hurt, so that there's some sort of insurance that protects us as we try to invest in the people of the country. But most importantly, I want us to stop for a bit and understand that if this is not going to be clear using technology in 2023, then we will not be able to impact the people as actively as we want. So I'll give you another example. Somebody will say, oh, how are you going to transfer rice and beans through the internet? I'll tell you very clearly. So if you partner effectively with the microfinance bank, a code is going to be generated, and this is the time where local governments can be brought into full fruition. I expect that at a time like this, local governments are going to be the custodians of all of these products that can only be accessed by a well securely generated code that gives the people in those localities who have got their data fully registered with the system to go to those local governments and access those products, access those commodities that the government is willing to use to support them. At the same time, it also goes to the conversation around, okay, if I want to support your agricultural venture, how do I support your agricultural venture? Do I give you money to go and buy tractor? Do I give you money to go and buy fertilizer? No, I give you codes that are generated, and only these codes you can use to access these services or these products from the local government. This is the only time the local government, this is the biggest opportunity President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has to see that indeed those local governments, the conversation around local government autonomy that we've been having for so many years can happen only if you can give them true responsibility. I remember in 1992 when there was an election, I think when President, former head of state, Ibrahim Babangida was the head of state then, and then we had civilian chairmen for local government. They were so relevant to us. They were so important because we knew the responsibility that were bestowed upon them and how they needed to work to see that the people felt good governance. And all of that is lost. From the state government to the local areas, the gap is too wide for you to get that impact that you want. Not to forget that corruption will always rear its ugly head. Its ugly head.
All right, Ahmed Buhari, let's put you on hold for a bit and take a break. And when we return, we'll continue this conversation with our guests. Do stay with us.
Nigeria's democratic experience since independence in 1960 has been a fractured one. From the First Republic to the present political dispensation, that is the Fourth Republic, it has been plagued by military coups and lack of sense of national unity on the part of political class who often resort to divisive tendencies. In the first 3 years of independence, Nigeria was a constitutional monarchy, a British order in council enacted by Nigeria's first constitution as a sovereign state. Constitution, which came into force the 1st October 1960, Nigeria retained the late British monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, as titular head of state. It became a republic in 1963, with the late Abubakar Tafawa Balewa as Prime Minister and Nnamdi Azikiwe replaced the British monarch as the ceremonial president or head of state.
President, last Saturday, the country which I have the honor to represent, the Federation of Nigeria, became independent and assumed the rights and the responsibilities of a sovereign state.
Some historians have the view that the ethno-religious tension colored much of Nigeria's politics in the early days of independence, as it still does today. The bloody military coup of 15th of January 1966 terminated the First Republic. The series of events that followed the coup was another bloody coup in July 1966, that the country was plugged into civil war that lasted for about 3 years. This was after the failure of the military authorities to address issues relating to the national question, which was thrown up in the aftermath of the 1966 coups. Following a series of military coups in the post-war era in the 1970s, the 1980s, and the 1990s, the country dipped deeper into corruption and impunity until it returned to civilian rule in 1999. But the then General Abdusalam Abubakar, who led a group of military officers that midwife the process, did not consider it necessary to adopt an elaborate process that would gather the input of a wide spectrum of the society with regards to fashioning a new constitution for the country. Over the years, Nigerians have been calling for a new constitution. The agitation for a new constitution has not waned. In spite of several attempts by the National Assembly since the return to civil rule to amend the 1999 Constitution, It continues to resurface when Nigerians are dissatisfied with the way their affairs are being run by the political class. The efforts by members of the National Assembly to amend the Constitution in recent years, observers believe, have always ended in futility because the lawmakers have not shown enough political will to focus on the issues at stake.
Do solemnly swear
that I will be faithful.
That I will be faithful.
Following the return to civil rule in 1999, the country has made some progress. For instance, for the first time in political history, the country has enjoyed uninterrupted civil rule for 24 years so far.
And bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
In 2015, there was a transfer of power from one political party to another, unprecedented in the country's political history. There was a lot of enthusiasm among Nigerians following the introduction of technology in the electoral process ahead of the just concluded general election.
Journey to democracy, notwithstanding the challenges, I still believe we are progressing. Since people could be complaining of one obstacle or the other, but it's normal in life. There is nowhere you have a perfect system.
63 years of independence and several attempts to entrench democracy and get Nigerians to imbibe the democratic culture, there's still so much to be desired.
Challenge before the people of Nigeria is to reclaim the soul of the country. And that cannot be done by depending on the government. And Nigerians have to be organized.
By the definition of democracy as government of the people, by the people and for the people, for many Nigerians, there's hope things will be better, but when? That is a big question, begging for answers. Ademola Lawrence, TVC News, Lagos.
The confidence is there. Hope is back for Nigeria. Just let us be.
All right, thank you for staying with us. That's a report on the journey so far with regards to our democracy, how we have fared as a nation. And we still have our guest in our Abuja studio, former vice presidential candidate of the ADC in 2023 election, Ahmed Buhari, still with us. Ahmed, let's turn our attention this time around to the state of our union as it is. You would recall that before the 2023 election, there was so much conversation around ethnic profiling, around religious profiling, and some would say that these are the issues that have been with us even before the Civil War began, that led to the Civil War as it is, talking about the fabric of our society, the fault lines that seemingly are dragging us back and forth. And the question would be that in 63 years, how would you evaluate how we've been able to manage these things, despite the conversation around some person saying they want to break away, we might not be united even till this point, but we still see ourselves hanging on to that thread?
By the grace of God, right? Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, so it's complex, yes. We are a very complex space, over 600 different languages, so many ethnic groups, so many religions. Even when you go to a particular ethnic group, if you go deeper, it's subdivided into different beliefs and ideologies. And that is why I still would maintain that even though people continue to say all of these put together is the strength that we have, we may never be able to actualize that strength if we do not see where the danger lies. And the danger lies in the fact that we may never be able to unite or agree or work together if our bellies are still empty. Hunger is the underlying fact that still makes a people angry and fight and disagree. There are other places you go around the world where you find this sort of complexities, maybe not as complex as our space, but indeed complex. But because they have slowly driven themselves above that level of poverty or to a level of financial security, they do not fight themselves unnecessarily. Because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is survival. So when you see people who are actually thriving very well, it is because indeed there is some cushion effect that gives them that ability to look forward to brighter days, either on the basis of hope, on the basis of belief, or on the basis of prosperity. And the fact that all of that is missing in our space, we keep going back and forth with regards to who is the reason for my downfall. Why am I not able to achieve the things that I want to achieve? Oh, is the Hausa man's fault? It's because they're in government. Oh, if a Yoruba man comes, it's going to be better. No, 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 no. The only people that are going to make this space work is Igbo. In fact, I want to pull out as an Igbo man because these two guys are closer to each other than to me, and so I cannot survive in this space. It's going to keep going on and on and on and on. And when you go to my own little village there in Niger State, you will still find a lot of people in that small town who would say the reason why we're not prospering, why there's no prosperity around our side is because the people from the north, from the eastern part of the village are better off than the people from the western. Oh, those are the ones that have guys in the army. We don't have guys in the military. Blah, 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 blah. It's still going to keep going on. So let us make the economy work. Once the economy is working, we're not going to see ourselves as different anymore. We're just going to see ourselves as a people working together for our collective progress, our collective success. And it still boils down to the conversation around what is the main element that puts us as a country together, or what is that thing that the country can put in place that can help us, keep thriving. And I'm going to tell you, it is this God-given petroleum products, for now at least. Before you start talking about our human capacity, our human capabilities, and our ability to do great things as a people, I'm still going to go to the conversation of fuel subsidy. I still think that, I remember the president's conversation a couple of weeks ago when he spoke about the fuel subsidy, and the reason why this subsidy has got to go is because some of the elitists of the elite are the beneficiaries of the fuel subsidy regime. And I asked myself, if the president knows the people that are benefiting from the subsidy regime, and I'm believing these are the people that have got the licenses to import this product, then fish them out, then name them, or tell them, or reorganize their licenses and see how they can function better in your era, in your regime. But rather than do that, I saw subsidy being removed so that all of us would feel the pain. I honestly think it is unfair on the generality of the Nigerian people. So most importantly, I think at a time like this, we must ask ourselves that true question. Why are we paying for subsidy in dollars or in any other currency, as a matter of fact? Why don't we pay for this in Naira? Why don't we say, oh, you know what? If we really want to make the Nigerian people feel the government presence in their lives, let us go back to the pump. And so that when I go to the pump and I see that a liter is supposed to be sold for 1,000 Naira, but the government is asking me to pay 200 Naira, and when I do that, I know that, oh, government has actually paid 800 Naira for every liter that I bought. At the end of the day, the government goes back to that pump and say, you know what, how much fuel did you sell? And then give them the money in Naira. That is the only way we can feel the ease in all of this exchange for dollar and Naira. And why on earth are we not going to sell these products to Dangote Refinery in Naira? Why do we have to sell it in dollars? If we're going to keep sourcing for the dollar in this economy, we're going to continue straining the Naira, and we're going to continue complaining about our inability to make ends meet. That is the crux of the matter.
So we cannot deny the fact that our country has survived predictions by doomsayers in the area of its indivisibility. There are voices from within and outside that have, prophesied, that Nigeria wouldn't be together. Look at us now, 63 years after, we're still here. And unlike every other, most West African countries that are dealing with coup d'etats, we have done, almost over 20 years of successive democratic transition. The processes are not, perfect yet, but it's getting better, particularly when you consider the Electoral Act of 2022 that seems to have pushed us a notch higher. But I want us to speak to the role of politics and religion in all of this, because that seemed to also put the spotlight on the ethnic differences. Take the sit-at-home order in the southeast, for instance. The Enugu state governor came up and say, see, we're losing billions, if not trillions, you know, and you can tell that the narrative is fast changing. So the people there are saying, you know what, it matters that we survive first. It matters that our businesses boom. It matters that we, you know, survive economically, you know, rather than push these narratives. Speak to us about how much burden you think this administration carries to navigate, you know, that narrative of nepotism, ethnic profiling that has since characterized previous administration. Because take, for instance, people in the Southeast are saying, we want to see a sense of togetherness in appointments, you know. We want to see that we are all together in this nation. What do you think this administration is meant to do differently?
First of all, I think the best gift President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has is his ability to communicate. I think he's a good communicator. I think he knows how to convey his thoughts in a very subtle way that makes you want to listen and hopefully act. So I think he's going to need a lot of that on this journey. With regards to our complexities around ethnicity and religion and the divides that occur, I think we need to go back to the Constitution. I think we need to agree that we are not the United States or any other country that we try to emulate when we try to put our Constitution and our policies together. We must understand that we have our uniqueness, our challenges are real, our people are different, and the more we try to copy and paste some of these platforms and some of what these platforms have got, the more we're going to keep having these problems that we are having. My advice would be, for example, on the religious grounds, that we indeed start thinking deeply how we can have some regulations. I remember the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, came up with the whole religious bill that everybody in the world was fighting against without even reading it. And what that religious bill was trying to do, in essence, at that point in time, was to see how we can control the excesses that happens on the pulpit, on all religions, on all the platforms that you have different religions. People take advantage of congregations and spew things that will come out mostly in their favor. It's the same thing that's happening on the ethnicity ground. Conversations with the Southeast has got to happen. We have to sit down with the Southeast. We have to have this conversation with the Southeast. And as a matter of fact, I've been saying this for many years, there's a huge apology that has got to be done by the Nigerian people, by the Nigerian government, to the Southeasterners to say, you know what, the civil war that happened in this country didn't have a reason to happen. And we have to go back there and pick it up from there and see how we can actually start mending all of these unfortunate circumstances that have happened in the past, only so that we can move forward together as a people, understanding that we've all had our fair share of inefficiencies in decisions that have been made by different leaders. However, I think it's a process, and we must agree that we have made some mistakes and are willing and hoping to rectify those mistakes. That inability of government having this conversation is what has really made certain people, especially within certain generations, where certain age brackets, believe that whatever they see happening is correct. So, for example, somebody from northern Nigeria might think that indeed he is supposed to not like somebody from southeast because that is the narrative that has been given to him. But I assure you, if the government starts having these conversations around the fact that, you know, this war shouldn't have happened, for example, or these imbalances that we're seeing are not supposed to be like that, then indeed, maybe, just maybe, we'll start building that relationship between ourselves and our brothers who are truly like us. Because I know we had this conversation a couple of months ago, and somebody was saying that he's from Northeast, and so he's different from somebody from the Southwest. And I said, if you go back, if I challenge you to go back 10 generations before your father, you cannot tell me who they really are, which means you can't even tell if you migrated from somewhere in Ijebu-Ode and now you find yourself somewhere in Potiskum. And these are the realities. And so we must understand that these things are there, and we must, as a matter of urgency, start working towards making sure that we mend all of these fences.
Okay.